So, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Improving Season podcast. It is me, Pascal Steve, and on the other end, it is Steve Hall. Steve, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right, actually. The thing that immediately comes to mind when you ask that is two things, actually. I don't know if you ever have this, where you seemingly have done nothing different to any other day, but you go to bed and for whatever reason, you're just not sleeping as well.
Oh, yeah.
Like I'm just waking up in the night and I'm like, what's going on? Like sometimes I get that when I'm like overreaching or getting close to that state and like needing a deload soon, but just sometimes it just happens. And then the other thing that's happened is I've woken up and I'm like, why is my like mid back, like it feels like a bit painful. Like I need to go on a foam roller and like do some thoracic extensions and stuff on it. And I'm like, why is, I can't even think why it is like that. Like yesterday I didn't train my back, it was legs. So it's like I didn't even do like straight head deadlifts or any hip hinging. So like I don't understand. Maybe I'm getting old now.
Yeah, I mean, welcome to my world. It's not just age related, but also, as you may know, due to then Scheuermann's disease, this is a constant for me, where I have it very easily that my back is just kind of flaring up, having some kind of spasms as well. And then it's just painful for like 1, 2, sometimes even longer than this days. Out of nowhere. Sometimes I'm getting up in the morning, walking around, making myself a coffee, and then one wrong movement, and then it contracts, and it's just painful. And sometimes it's just like the same as you, that sensation of like, I want to roll out because it just feels tight. So yeah.
So that's what immediately comes to mind. Otherwise I'm fine. Actually, something I had been looking at was we spoke about it not that long ago, like timelines for next season and competing. And I'm like, my plan has a mini cut that lands right over Christmas for 3 weeks.
Oh.
And that's a non-issue for me because it's just like, I just don't want to, I said this to a client. I was just like, I just don't want to tell Charlotte because she's going to be like, for fuck's sake, Steve, why are you mini cutting?
Right? The thing is that same as you, Steve, it doesn't really impact me anymore that much. I just do it and people don't really notice it unless I'm telling them.
Yeah, the only issue for us is we eat out together and stuff. So she likes, obviously I like doing that too, but it's a bit harder for me to do our pick. Like I'll be like, she'll be like, do you want to get a takeaway? And I'll be like, it has to be Wagamama so I can get the chicken ramen, which is under 500 calories. Or especially if it's a mini cut, which is pretty aggressive.
Yeah.
But then part of me was also like, I don't know. I think this probably happens to a lot of people when they're thinking about prep is I feel like I'm on a good run. Like I'm like, my appetite is still good. I'm moving into the 190 pounds where my appetite is normally starting to hit a wall. But like even yesterday, I was like, I could eat like plenty more if I needed to. I'm just like, like, do I want to just keep massing? I'm like, yeah, but you need also to be lean to start prep at a good point. It's like bargaining with myself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Funny enough, you just brought up the one guy in one of the voice messages that we've exchanged. And that is the 21-year-old Benjamin. So Benjamin Schuster from Germany.
Fuck that guy.
He's just ridiculous in a positive way. Benjamin, I don't think that you're listening, but if you do, I mean it very much in a positive way. But it's just, he's showing up and he's destroying everyone. Everyone. Guys, if you haven't checked him out, he's currently winning everything in Europe. Every kind of show. He's taking the overall even. It's crazy. And he's 21 years old. Let that sink for a moment.
I look at myself when I was 21. Like if I was standing next to him, you'd just be like, you're both bodybuilders? What? Like, don't know about this guy. But yeah, he won like the Evo Classic, arguably like the biggest competition in Europe that's been like, and he's just winning that. And he just beat Dirk, who the listeners might know, Dirk Emmerich, who's like, he's improved a lot since I saw him win the overall at WNBF Worlds in 2021. And Dirk's having a great season himself. He won a pro class, and this guy Benjamin's kind of taking it from Dirk as well. It's just like, hey, this is just, it's crazy. Like people say, I don't know, that was a thing for a bit, like natural bodybuilding is dead and natural bodybuilders aren't getting better. And I'm like, I don't know, like maybe social media highlights them a bit more, but I feel like there's some crazy talent this year that I'm just like, maybe I'm just seeing them, but I'm just like, there's a lot of people out there. I'm just like, wow.
Yeah, that's true. Also, the conditioning is just getting crazier and crazier from year to year. It's not that necessarily the level of leanness is getting wilder, but the magnitude of people who are pushing into that level of leanness is just increasing more and more so. Where it's like nearly everyone is just getting peeled to an extent where you're just like, how the hell is that even possible that so many people are getting to that level?
I remember someone was saying, it might have been like Eric Helms or Berto, they're saying essentially back, I don't know, a decade or so ago, you'd come in with, over a decade now, maybe even too close, but you could come in with shredded glutes and you were like, you'd go pro. Like if you had shredded glutes, you're going pro. Whereas now, like you get juniors with shredded glutes. Like you get teens possibly even coming in with shredded glutes, maybe to their detriment at times. I'm not saying it's like the be all and end all, but it's like, hey, shredded glutes are certainly not enough anymore. Yeah, you need that in combination with everything else to be very competitive. And yeah, I'm even like, man, I didn't even like, I still have condition to give on that front. And I'm like, man, like this is going to be super interesting to try and like battle against. Obviously I'm not even on the level of pros, like, so even battling against some amateurs is going to be tough. So yeah, it was we're talking about the WNBF Germany, which you Germans are just providing a wild show there. And actually really cool because it had like there was like the pro shows and everything with money to be won. And was there a Thor hammer? Is that what ended up getting won? Was like this Thor hammer?
I can't really recall what type of weapon they've handed out.
I'm pretty sure it was like the Thor
some
hammer.
Kind of weapon. They're always handing out weapons. I don't know why that's a thing of like swords, hammers. No,
I don't know where that comes from.
Nunchakos and all that kind of shit. So I don't know what the people want to do with it other than hanging it onto the wall. Or maybe they are preparing for an army of shredded warriors or something like this.
Possibly. So yeah, I had my client naked. My client Macau was there. And unfortunately, I don't know, I need to talk to him a little bit to get some further details, but on his scale, at least from the measurements I was getting, he was in the weight class below. There was like 4 different weight classes. I didn't know what specifically they were, but he ended up being in heavies, I think, basically. But only just. And I think on their scales, he was heavier than what his scales were by considerable amounts.
All right.
So that made it a bit harder for him because he was then one of the lighter heavies, but the quality of that class was high. I think the guy that won his class also won the amateur overall, and so I guess went pro. And he definitely would have been close to the top 5, at least from the video footage and clips I've seen, which is great. It's his first season, but like it's...
Does it motivate you to see that type of caliber at the moment in Natty federations, or is it a little bit daunting for you, knowing that you would like to compete next year?
It's a really good question. I think if I was younger and less far in my lifting career, it would be inspirational and like really like, oh yeah, like this is what can be achieved. Whereas now it's a bit like, holy shit, am I up to scratch against some of these people? And I can disassociate a little bit from the people like Dirk and Benjamin because they are pros. So I'm not even on their playing field. I'm like down below playing with the amateurs. So it's like, hey, maybe I can scrap it out with some amateurs out here, because I always like what Berto said about pros is like, hey, when you're an amateur, I think it was like something along the lines of like, when you're a pro, there's not really weaknesses. Like you can't like picking weaknesses apart isn't there. Whereas when you're an amateur, you can like pick weaknesses on people's physiques. So it's like a different ball game. I can't remember specifically how he worded it, but yeah, it's like, hey, I'm trying to remove as many weaknesses from my physique, and I specifically know what they are. So it's like, have they improved enough to be able to kind of be up there? But yeah, it doesn't really change too much for me seeing these people, but it's wild to see a 21-year-old. Like that's just, I don't know how long he's been lifting, hopefully more than fucking 3 years, 2 years.
I don't know, but it is also a very rare look on him, you know, because he's also very tall, and it looks, and also his muscle bellies, the shape and all that kind of stuff, it just looks very, very aesthetically appealing. Everything, it's just like he's bringing a total package, which is very rare to actually see, and that's also why he's doing so well, because it's such a rare phenomenon.
Yeah, I would agree with that, because he's beating Fabian, who is another German who came second to Babacar. I might have the name wrong, but he came second at, I think, at the 2022 Worlds. Some people had him coming first. A lot of people did, and I think Eric Helms maybe mentioned at some point he thinks he's the best bodybuilder on the planet. It's like this Benjamin guy just came out of nowhere. Like, I don't know, is this his first season competing? It might be.
I have no idea, honestly. I've never heard of him before. So
no.
He just showed up, and once again, as I said earlier, he's destroying everyone. Like, really destroying everyone. It's just crazy.
Did you see much of the Olympia? Have you seen like clips of it? And
yeah, but once again, I said it already. I think over the past 2 years, whenever it came up, that I'm not following along, because I don't really care about it that much. I'm not that type of guy who's actually putting on the television and then watching some kind of Olympia shows. Maybe then if it's a short summary or so, or whatever it is that you're seeing over on social media, over on Instagram, this is what I'm following. But everything else, I can't really sit through several hours and watching this. I, first and foremost, can't be bothered enough. Secondary, for me personally, I have better things to do with my time, at least. I can absolutely understand why some find it appealing, but once again, for me personally, I rather want to spend time with my family than watching a lot of jacked people stepping on stage and just posing there. Right?
It's a bit for as natural bodybuilders. It depends where you came from, because I think a lot of guys, even in natural bodybuilding, who got into bodybuilding, it was through the enhanced side, but I never did. So I was never getting into bodybuilding because of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Ronnie Coleman or Jay Cutler. They weren't people that I like looked up to. I got into it because I like found like social media and natural bodybuilders competing. Yeah. So these were like the people I was looking at. So I always just look at it as a little bit like, hey, it's just never been a huge interest of mine. But I do think the the like marketing and that sort of element across social media is impressive. Like they do some really good like clips of like, you see Bumstead like and transitions into shots and like showing competitors against one another, and I'm like, man, if you had that sort of media production behind natural bodybuilding, like,
that's true. And also I have to give them credit for the lighting and the pictures. They always come out freaking fantastic. Whenever you see the pictures from this year and also the last couple of years, they look fantastic. And this in itself is already promotion enough, in my opinion. And they are then, of course, doing more on top of this all. But I think that if even natural federations were to put a little bit more emphasis on the lighting and also getting a good photographer on there, they would immediately promote their show a little bit better, because it just looks freaking fantastic then. And I can say that I saw some similarities with the show where Eric Helms competed and turned pro. Those pictures looked fantastic, and they reminded me so much of what it is that you're seeing with those Olympia shots as well. And it's just appealing to look at those pictures, and it just does something to you. It grabs your attention a little bit more so.
Something I also like that they did at the Two Bros, which is associated with the IFBB, the Two Bros Natural I did in 2021. They bring out each competitor, and you get to do just like a pose to they just put on a song, and then you hit like your favorite like mandatory. You hit some favorite poses, you know, like
so it's not really a 60-second routine, but it's just like for
you do that in addition. Yeah, it's mostly for like pictures. I don't know what the reason necessarily for it is, because you're not comparing against other competitors. It's not a 60-second routine. It's just to come out and show your physique. But the clips you get from that across social media, like I see like their 60 seconds where they do like their best shots and they show them off. I'm like, and the quality of that camera footage and the lighting, like you said, it's just like, wow. Like if you had that of like some amazing natural bodybuilders, like people would be like, and no one would believe they're natural. They'd be like, these guys are on gear. Like clearly just be like, oh wow, that's achievable naturally. But yeah, I agree with you. Like I think that was the WNBF Australia, was it, that Eric turned pro? And then the AMBF, where I was invited to in Austria, they did like a crazy production compared to like shows you generally see, where they had, what those little, why have I forgotten what they're called?
Drones.
The drones, that's the one. The drones, they're like flying around with like cameras on, and that's wild. That's pretty cool.
What I have to say though on this note is it should always be there should always be a balance between not pissing off the audience. And I don't know what it was like being there on location. It's only what it is that you see online on the videos, and it looks fantastic, right? But I would be curious to know how it was for them people on location. Because those drones are most of the time quite noisy. I don't know what type of drone they were using, because of course there are different types of drones, so that the camera, depending on the camera, when you have like a Blackmagic, for example, or an ARRI camera, which is like high quality productions, they weigh much more so you need, of course, a bigger and also heavier drone as well, which then in return most of the time makes more noise. And if it's them flying around and all that kind of jazz, I think it always needs to strike that balance of like not annoying people too much on location, so that everyone has a great time. And it's not just about beautiful pictures, beautiful images, but on location it looks like a movie set or so.
Yeah, I think from what I've heard of some feedback, at least for the live stream, it was a little bit much having that drone. Yeah. Because you're trying to compare, and then suddenly this drone comes across and you snaps some footage. You're like, oh, now it's at a weird angle. I can't handle that. But with the Olympia, I'm the same as you. It's not something I'm going to like pay for the live stream, sit down and watch. I could see myself doing it, say, if I had like a few bros who are like with me. Not that I have any bros locally,
absolutely.
But I could sit down and watch that with some guys and just be like, oh, this is pretty cool. But I don't have that, so it's not something I'm going to sit down and watch. But I do like seeing the bits on social media and then seeing the comparisons and seeing just how, especially since judging, then like using my judge's eye and the criteria I judge with and seeing how their judges are judging. Because often what is winning at the IFBB and the looks they're going for then just comes down to the rest of like the natural bodybuilding scene. So it's interesting to see that. But
go ahead.
I was just going to say that I don't watch, I'm not as into as many of the female classes, I'm more invested into the men's classes, like for obvious reasons. And also,
obvious reasons.
The female classes are, the enhanced side, it's just so wildly different. It's so like the men's is obviously crazy different, but the female side is like, it's really crazily different. And the criteria, I don't know, like sometimes that can be the bikini class. I don't know. I don't know how they're judging that. Anyway, but I had Derek winning, first of all. And also I had Keon winning the 212 Prodigy. Keon Prodigy? Is that actually his name? He is that on Instagram. Anyway, and then I had Bumstead winning. Bumstead is just classic. Like, if he's around and he's looking how he's looking, he's just going to win.
The thing is, what I found interesting is, and that has been the case for me, at least my sentiment around Olympia over the past years, that classic is just the attraction point. This is the reason why most people tune in. Because also, Bumstead, he is just a phenomenon as well. He's a very cool dude. I don't know why, but some people just have it. You look at them and you like them or not, you know? And he's one of those people where you just like, nearly everyone is like, yeah, Bumstead is cool, you know?
He's down to earth.
Yeah, and he attracts a lot of people, I think. I think without him, it wouldn't really draw as much attention, to be fair. But that has always been the case with Olympia most of the time, that they had this one person drawing most of the attention, or that there was a battle between kind of several people. So, right? Like, especially early in the days, it was Arnold, for obvious reasons, who draw a lot of attention to everything. And then Ronnie Coleman as well, and then the battles, Kevin Lee Rohn and Dorian, who came then up as well, being the mass monster. There has always been kind of that one or two people drawing most of the attention to it. And this is something that I've noticed over the last couple of years. The classic is just taking center stage, and everything else is becoming a little bit unimportant. At least that's the sentiment that I have. Even open bodybuilding has become less important for me personally to follow along, because it doesn't really have those strong characters. You know what I'm talking about? Those who stand for something. Like, if you recall back, Kai Green, he was a character, right? And how many people from previous years who turned second, or went second place or anything alike, can you still recall where you can say like, okay, this was a unique character? There weren't really many. And that's what I'm saying here, right? And also with Keon, I think he was also a special one because over the past years, when he was also competing still in Classic, it was quite clear that he has something special and that it's only about really building things and making it happen. And many people, I do remember like 2-3 years ago, were saying that he doesn't really have what it takes because he doesn't have the grit to really push forward and actually winning then those kind of shows. Because I do remember the transition from Classic to then to 212. That was crazy. He blew up in a matter of a year. But many people once again said that he has a hard time getting lean enough to really take the win and all that kind of stuff. And him now showing up there, I think that this may then kick off another era in 212s as well.
Yeah, Keon, you just look at him and he just has like this it factor, just this flow to his physique. You're just like I know a lot of people like Sean Roden. Sean Roden, that's not the name I went for. Sean Clarida was the name I was going for, who is just like got freaky muscle mass, very conditioned. But like, hey, Keon brought better condition than he's ever had. He had the mass and he just has that flow. Like his waist is just non-existent. His only real weakness is having that like split between his abs, which just doesn't look great when he hits an ab and thigh basically, but he can completely hide it when he hits a vacuum, and his vacuum's wild. Like it just looks so good. But yeah, I know what you mean in terms of the open. I think there's actually a statistic out there. I saw someone saying the number of like people watching the live stream for Classic versus the Open, and there was way more for Classic. Yeah,
I'm not surprised.
The prize money's less for
Classic.
Classic.
It's crazy.
So they're going to have to change that around at some point.
Yeah. I don't know if it ever will though, because this is what it has always been. This has been the pinnacle, you know. And no, absolutely.
But yeah, it's always, like I said, I'm only seeing it. I haven't watched the live stream. And I think part of the reason I don't see many of the women's kind of competition is because I actually just see it through my feed as well. So it's just like I follow who's the best BB or something. And he does a lot of like the enhanced side, but he focuses heavily on males. He now and then posts some females, and I've forgotten what category she was in, but she's Sarah something, and she's won it maybe 3 times her category, and she didn't win it last year. And I look at her physique and I'm just like, this is crazy. Like the look some of these females can bring, because their waist is even smaller than the men. Like it's just absurd. So yeah, anyway, it's just... I always enjoy the hype behind the Olympia, and I can't imagine natural bodybuilding getting on that level, but it's interesting to try and learn what can we take away, what are they doing right that we can take away and apply. Yeah,
and I think it's a perfect example how much more attention there is on male bodybuilding than female bodybuilding, because what's her name again? See, I can't even recall her name, even though
I'm terrible with names.
That she
so
won
I have that excuse.
Olympia now for the 7th time in a row.
Oh, wait, the female bodybuilder?
No, it's not bodybuilder. Figure, I mean.
She's not Shelby Starnes' client.
No, I don't think so.
Blonde.
No. The or is it? No, I think it's Figure. Sierra or so.
Okay.
See, I can't even recall the name, and she is 7 times Olympia, and it just goes to show the kind of attention discrepancy there. And I don't want to open a can of worms here, because it's kind of the same thing when it comes to sports around football, for example, female football in comparison to males football. You know, I think that there's a reason for why one has more attention than the other. And that has nothing to do, in my opinion at least, with the male patriarchy or being misogynistic or anything alike. It's just that people want to see freaks. And while females are also freaks to some extent, relatively speaking, if you can see, I don't know, open bodybuilding, mass monsters who are then competing, or someone like Chris Bumstead in comparison to the females. While the females are impressive, right? No one is denying that. In my opinion, and that is my humble opinion, of course, I find it way more entertaining to watch the males compete.
Yeah, and I think you can easily boil this down to, or you can compare it to natural bodybuilding. You'd be like, the reason natural bodybuilding is never going to be of the size and scale as the enhanced side is because people want to see freaks.
Yeah.
And natural bodybuilders, I mean, they're not really much different. Like they're not, I don't even know the comparison, but like we're not really freaky compared to the female enhanced side, right? Like there's freakier female enhanced bodybuilders.
But I think it's a perfect example because it has nothing to do with the gender itself.
No.
It is mostly about like, what is it that is mostly kind of freakish? And what is it that I want to see here? Sid, isn't she called Sid Gillian? Sid Gillian, can it be?
Maybe. Like I said, I'm terrible with names, which is why I can only remember that the one female who I'm trying to think of is called Sarah.
Yeah,
something.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But that's the thing, right? And this also then applies if you want to draw the comparison between opens bodybuilding and also then classic bodybuilding. I find it more entertaining to right now watch something like classic in comparison to open bodybuilding. And also there is no discrepancy between genders. I would very much assume that everyone has a wiener between their legs. So that isn't up for debate. It's more about kind of what is the most entertaining in that given moment.
Yeah, and I think because most bodybuilders are male, and despite popular belief, like you get into the gym and everything, and if you're a bodybuilder, we're not doing this for the opposite gender, like to look good for them. We're doing it basically to impress other males, right? And we're doing it like to be competitive or whatever. So it's the same with football, I guess, in some ways. Like your demand, like men, no, I guess, I don't know. Yeah, that's what, I guess that is gender specific, but a man wants to see another man compete because they're like comparing themselves and they're interested because that's their sport, maybe, if you know what I mean, versus a man's not doing figure, you know? So the demand to watch figure is more so from females, but there's just way less females interested in the sport of bodybuilding. Like if you go to the Olympia, I'm imagining 80% of the audience is maybe male. So that has a role to play.
And I don't know whether this is a fair comparison because I've never been to a beauty contest. But if you were to turn up to a beauty contest, I would be very curious to know how many in the audience are male audiences and how many of those are female, or whether it's a split, an evenly distributed audience or not. And if so, is it mostly because these are managers or friends and families who are sitting in the audience, or Sims, or is it because it's fans of kind of beauty contests or so, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm just annoyed. I'm always annoyed when I can't remember names because I can visually see people. I can see the face and I'm like, damn it, why can't I say who this is? Anyway, so I don't know how we got to this, but we're talking about the Olympia, talked about the WNBF Germany. So I think the last, basically all the WNBF shows are probably done now, and it's Worlds, which is like week. A week and a half out. Yeah, so it's on Saturday, Sunday, which is exciting. Obviously, I think we've spoken about Rob before, so I have just one client going out there in Seattle. So yeah, we're kind of prepping for the final kind of stages into that. I shared I thought it would be interesting because I don't see many people talking about peaking to like having peaking case studies and stuff, especially like a rapid backload stuff. And I thought, hey, let's just share kind of what we went through and why, because essentially he's right on the cusp of a weight category. And it's like, hey, we'd prefer to be lighter, like heavy in a lighter weight category than kind of light in a heavier weight category, because then you can be the biggest in that category, hopefully. Not that bodybuilding's all about who's biggest and heaviest, because a lot more goes into that. But he has very good shape too, so that will help. And so we just wanted to try a rapid backload because he has to weigh in the Friday morning to compete on the Saturday. So it's like, hey, maybe we could rapid backload. So get you completely full and like basically deplete into the weigh-in. So you're definitely going to be in the lighter weight category. But the rapid backload is, and I always thought this about it, it's obviously a bit more of a gamble, but it's also a little bit more stressful. bloating, stuff like this. And then also a day out before a show, it's not often the least stressful day. There's often, and for him, because he's going to Worlds, there's a lot of, he has to go weigh in, and then, I don't know, the tanning process, and there's a lot going on a day out. So it's not the easiest, he's not like just at home eating. Like, so having to take food with you and again, moving around, it's just not going to be the easiest day for him. So it didn't really make sense. But then we don't want to load, like you could say, hey, could you like load before and then take Friday as like a low day? It's like, but we don't want to be fully loaded or anywhere near spilled, because then he's going to be too heavy and he's going to push into the heavier weight category. So it's like, it was a good experience, and it's been great to have him like very lean so we can experiment with these things and learn. And he's also great because he's very responsive to carbs. So I think he was a prime candidate for the rapid backload. He could use it, but it just doesn't make sense logistically for him in practice. So yeah, we ended up being like, hey, let's take a couple of days of moderate eating. So you're not going to moderate carb loading. So you're not going to go over the weight category. Hopefully he shouldn't do. He's got a good kilo or so of room, and then not do a rapid backload on the Friday, but like a moderate load on that Friday, come in for Saturday. The worst thing that could happen here is if their scale is different and so he weighs in heavier, but we haven't loaded him as hard as we could have. Yeah, and then we'll be like, for fuck's sake. But you know, these are the like things you have to do.
Exactly. It's kind of a gamble. You're always playing with some kind of variables, with some kind of metrics as well, the metric of the scale, especially when there are weight classes and all that kind of stuff, you know. You can, of course, take the conservative approach and be very much on the safe side, but maybe, especially when it's the last show, and maybe that you can bring a little bit of a different thing. You can just experiment a little bit. And funny enough, one of my athletes is competing at the Worlds as well. Lena,
awesome. And oh, yes, I know, of course.
And with her, we have experimented a lot, where I was like, hey, all right, we are here. Let's take a gamble and let's see what comes out of this, right? And we've experimented a lot with the way that we've also scheduled and set up her training leading into the last couple of shows. And also what it is that we did was experimenting with a fairly high fat intake, because apparently for her, she was always looking better when she had a much, much higher fat intake, especially on the days of the show, leading then into the next days. High sodium and high fat.
Interesting.
And we were just like, all right, let's just give it a try. And apparently it worked out fantastic. Here, the last show, she took the overall, she won a pro card, she qualified for Worlds, all that kind of stuff. And that was due to experimentation. And sometimes it can go the other way. And then it's kind of the thing that we've mentioned like last week, hindsight bias. Then you would be like, oh man, we should have known. And yet we are here being happy about the decision that we've made. And now we are not looking back in hindsight and be like, oh, we are so happy that we did do it after all, right? No, it's just like, yeah, we can be happy that the results were better than expected even.
Yeah, that's, you don't often hear higher sodium for sure, but not the higher fats. And I guess the thing is with bikini, it isn't the principles of peaking can be applied to bikini the same way that they can be applied to a male bodybuilder, but it's not quite the same, because they're quite a bit higher in body fat, and so you also don't want vascularity. So what it is that we've aimed for was actually just overall a fuller look. Full, not in the sense of muscularity, but more so even filling out maybe the intracellular space as well. Because all we wanted is that the glutes were full and round. And for this, we actually took the trade-off and sacrificing more leanness and more details in the entire upper body. Yep. And even some leanness in the legs as well, because we wanted those bubble butts. Popping glutes. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's where we actually then had that discussion and said like, okay, do we want to risk it? We are just like pushing, also causing cell swelling. That's what we did in terms of our programming leading up to the show. Just like for 2 weeks, just pounding the glutes. 5 days per week, just training the glutes, so that we cause a massive amount of cell swelling. And that was, once again, it was kind of gamble. There was, of course, a rationale behind it. What I wanted is that all of that water that we are then ingesting, due to the cell swelling and due to then maybe even the metabolic disruption, that it's then being kind of stored mostly in the glutes, and by that causing then that fuller and softer look there.
Do you not see the progress you would like? Are you sick of writing your own programs? Or perhaps you need some accountability in order to stick with a plan? Then it's time to start working with us. We at Revive Stronger offer a truly personalized coaching service. You'll get more than just an email with some macros or random cookie cutter program. With Revive Stronger, you will be the center of our attention. You will receive your own fully individualized training protocol alongside a customized nutritional strategy. We created the coaching around your needs, wants, personal preferences, and your own unique lifestyle. Every single week, we delve into your program in order to make appropriate adjustments so that we get the most out of your time and the best possible outcome. We help both female and male athletes to seriously change their body composition by adding more muscle mass and decreasing fat tissue. No matter if you're a competitive bodybuilder or just want to look better, if you need help with your progress and taking your physique to the next level, our coaching is for you. It's time to make a change. Sign up today and let's revive stronger.
Yeah, I've heard Paul Revelia like something like this. He's done a similar strategy.
All right.
Where it may be, I think when I interviewed him, he talked about it, maybe even the day before the show, like doing a lot of glute work, almost to the point of like, the thing is I'm always concerned about is them being sore and not being able to pose properly.
Yeah.
But if you've been doing it for 2 weeks, I imagine like you've adapted, you're not really getting sore. It's just, they're very full all the time and pumped up, which actually relates to a post that Chris Berricut did of his client, was it Josh Bradshaw, I think, where basically he did like a before and after, and there was little changes apart from training, and it was like training went from, on average, lower reps to higher reps. It was a similar sort of thing probably here, where those higher reps were leading to just that like large, more cell swelling, so muscles were looking fuller, all of that sort of thing. Which is, it's cool to see those things in practice, and very cool that you have experimented enough to try that specifically, because you would never do that to a male bodybuilder, right?
The thing is also, though, I need to give credits to then my athlete as well for being willing to take that gamble, because most people wouldn't really feel comfortable with it. It's kind of the same as when people are approaching you and wanting to cause a change, but they are afraid of actually then doing the things that cause a change.
Yeah.
I know it sounds confusing, but most that is not an uncommon phenomenon, that you're then suggesting maybe a completely different training split, a completely different approach to nutrition, and that in return they are also not comfortable with, even though that it's probably what is necessary in order to see some changes.
Yeah, it can be tough, especially when you're in prep and you're just, your sense of worry and anxiety is a little bit higher to experiment. But if you're in a good place and you've got the level of like condition that you need, then it's a great time to try and run a few experiments, especially if they're not too extreme and they're just like, you can slowly build up to them as well. I did, before we move on too much, Sarah Villegas is her name. She was Women's Physique. I just wanted, because she's the one who I've seen a few times pop up in my feed, and I just think her physique is completely crazy. And it's also funny because we also showed our bias here where we didn't talk about Ryan Terry, so
that's true.
who won
UK
the men's physique, and like he's been at it like a decade trying to win this thing. So like, man, it was cool, great to see that.
Yeah, it's cool that the perseverance and also just kind of the message behind it of like, I don't really like that saying, but you can accomplish everything if you work hard enough for it. And it's kind of that message, you know?
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, it's just, I'm glad we had a little bit of bias, like that wasn't just male and female driven, but also just category driven, which of course, like we said, it's like fun. And that's the BB page that I follow, Who is the Best BB. They're classic and they do like have open, and that's like all they really post about.
Man, Steve, to go off on a tangent here, I'm following, maybe I've unfollowed that account because there was one kind of bodybuilding account that had mostly kind of female bodybuilding in it. So bikini, figure, and even back then also female bodybuilding. he was posting things, and every now and then he was, and I know that it's a male though, right? Because at times it was just like weird what they posted, kind of very, you didn't really know whether it is a fitness or a bodybuilding female, or whether it's a porn star, the way that they've presented themselves. Sometimes he posted that kind of content where I was like, that's not what I've signed up for. That's not why I'm following you. Unfollow. Sorry for that. If I want to watch porn or see something like this, I can then specifically follow an account like this, or I go over to Pornhub and watch it. I don't need to follow a bodybuilding page to then see something like this.
I've had similar, but it's a bit different, following anime pages, and then they just randomly have like an OnlyFans female advert because they're just big accounts. They're like, hey, if you pay me enough, I'll promote you, whoever you are. And obviously anime nerds, mostly men, perfect audience to try and sell your OnlyFans to them. And I was like, fuck this shit. I don't need to follow. I'm going to unfollow this bloody anime account because I just followed you for anime stuff. I don't need like these adverts. But I know, so it's probably a little bit different to what you're saying. But yeah, some of these accounts, they just get big and then they just see money and they're just like, hey, let's advertise it. I even have it like a Star Wars one. They often have adverts for lightsabers like I have, but then they just gift them to like female, basically OnlyFans porn stars, and they're doing like sexy poses with them. I'm like, fuck this shit, man. This isn't what I want on my Instagram. Like you said, there's a time and place for this.
Oh man. Don't even get me started again on the social media discussion.
People are going to be wanting it, Pascal, is no spoilers, a Attack on Titan anime chat, I think.
Yeah, we've turned things around, didn't we? Oh, yeah. Oh, right. Cool. Where did you have this one from?
This is from Jackson's brand. It's Kashiro. Right. It came afterwards, unfortunately, because I kind of wanted to have it for it. But I thought it was cool. So I was like, I just like the style and stuff that he does. So
the good thing is we've turned things around. Normally we are having a discussion about anime at the beginning of the episode. This time we're having it later on. What it is that we can say though, because we could do some spoilers and all that kind of stuff, and say it as a disclaimer right now, we are probably spoiling some things, which though, by the way, I would be very surprised if you are into anime and if you have watched Attack on Titan before that, that you haven't really heard about the ending, because it's like Steve said to me over in WhatsApp already, and it's the same for me, my Instagram feed is full of it. I mean, this is one of those things. I don't even think that something like Game of Thrones back then was as much spoiled as this one. Luckily, I watched it immediately when I woke up in the morning. 6 a.m. in the morning, I was just like turning it on, which I've never done before when it comes to anime. So I was able to avoid the spoilers.
I also managed it. And I'm glad I managed to avoid even the manga spoilers, because obviously the ending was already available and out there, but I guess manga isn't as easy to spoil because it's like clips from a page type of thing.
And also there were tiny things made a little bit differently.
Yeah, it didn't change too much from what I gather.
For me personally, I loved the ending. Honestly, it's a show that has been around for 10 years. And just also listening to the mangaka, so the author who made it, hearing him talk about the entire story, that he had everything kind of already mapped out, is crazy. Especially when it comes to those small details. Everything kind of had a meaning. He had mostly still control over the way that Mappa did things, for example, the way that they've drawn things for anime. Most of the time, the mangakas don't really have a lot to say in it. Whereas here it was really like he was able to be part of the process, and most of the decisions he still had a say in it, which was great, because in my opinion it turned out great. And for me personally, so many people were kind of shitting on the ending, but I think, and it's something that I told you already, Steve, I think that people, when it comes to a show or so, something that they like, before they are starting a show, they have no expectations, because, of course, it was never in their life before. And then, especially when it's with them for a long period of time, they are emotionally invested. it's getting harder and harder to satisfy them when it comes to an end. It's kind of like a relationship. If someone breaks up with you, it is hardly ever right. You are most of the time pissed, right? It hardly ever is a mutual agreement. But if it's you who is then breaking up, it has its reasons and it's justified. And the same goes here as well. So many people who are complaining about it, they don't have any kind of idea of what kind of ending they were looking for. They just know that they didn't like the ending. Yeah. This is, to me, kind of dogmatic. I'm just happy that it ended instead of just milking it out indefinitely, such as Hollywood is always doing it with all of its franchises up until the point where it's kind of indigestible anymore. I can't watch Marvel anymore. And I love those comics. I can't watch this shit anymore. It's awful. Awful.
You see Endgame, like the last two.
Yeah. But
that's where it kind of like...
Ever since then, a lot of movies have come out as well, and even TV shows. And I haven't watched any of that shit anymore because I can't take it anymore. Because it's just like milking it out. And I'm just happy that it came to an ending. The ending is very, very good in my opinion. It is heartbreaking. And maybe this is also why many people are upset, because it's not what they've envisioned. They were hoping that maybe it has a happy ending, which it doesn't. And I'm totally fine with it.
Spoiler.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm totally fine with it. But this is also my personality, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I was actually looking for somewhat of not a happy
dark ending.
Yeah, totally. And even the mangaka, so he said that he wanted to make it as realistic as possible. He could have written a happy ending, but he thought that it's not representative and reflective of what society and humankind is. And that's why he actually said that he made that decision of not doing a happy ending, because symbolically wise, mankind is always going through the same cycle of love, hatred, war, etc., etc., and it's a never-ending cycle.
Yeah, so the way I approach these sort of things is I never go in with expectations, and I always just take it at face value. So I get very lost in just the moment of the episode, and I'm not so much thinking about, but that's like a hole here, or this doesn't make sense. Like, I'm not assessing it as I go through it. I'm just living the episode. And I do then go back and like I'll watch YouTube videos that like assess it and like talk about it. And I'm like, oh yeah. But I kind of think about it in the moment. So as an example, Naruto has like lots of holes in it, lots of things that don't make sense and like that sort of thing. But I watch every episode and I'm just like, this is so fucking cool. Like, I'm just really lost in the moment. So like, I like that. But I think I was happy with the ending. I generally like a happy ending. And like you said, it wasn't particularly happy. But in some ways, I like it because it keeps it different, because a lot of things end with a happy note, and I think it's quite nice that it's different. It sends a message, and it's so rewatchable. That's what I love about the whole thing. Like we've already said, we want to rewatch that final episode and kind of pick it apart, like pick out bits that kind of like, I didn't notice this or this, and yeah, it's been. I think is it on IBM or something? It's one of the only animes that has like a 9+ rating for like every episode.
IMDb, you mean?
Yeah. Although, from what I gather, quite a lot of One Piece fans have like destroyed the rating for this final episode because
it's ridiculous, to be honest. Why? This is cult-like
Why
behavior.
Did you do it, Pascal?
Yeah, but this is cult-like behavior once again, and these are two different shows. It's not a competition to some extent. One Piece has been around for over 25 years now. It's a fantastic world that has been created there. And Attack on Titans is a different show. So let it have success, because One Piece is benefiting from that as well. Right? And it has ended now. So why try to bash it? For me personally, Attack on Titans has achieved and accomplished something that perhaps no anime will ever pull off again. It has created a world and also a story that has never really been like this before. All shonen, for example, are fairly similar to another. Attack on Titans is completely different. Completely different from the storyline, from the character development, even the music, the animation. It kicked off something new. And I think this will be very, very hard to replicate. Creating something so unique and bringing such a high level of quality for over 10 years and then ending it on a good note and on a high standard. Because it's like I said, those IMDb ratings, they're going through the entire show. And that means over 10 years.
Yeah.
Try to pull this off,
Yeah, my final note on it was I just really liked how it really tied everything together. And any like we've talked about off air, like every moment in the show had a purpose. It wasn't just done for like a silly moment or like off the cuff. It all promoted the story and like fed into character development. And so I really like how it actually just really tied everything in together. In some ways, it isn't a happy overall ending, but you could argue there are some elements of it that are happy.
Absolutely.
And positive.
Yeah. And because we spoiled anyway, the moment when Armin and Aaron, they discussed things and they hugged each other and they came both to the realization that both were kind of responsible for a lot of deaths, despair. And this was a heartbreaking moment because they said kind of goodbye, but at the same time, it was also not a heartbreaking moment. It was kind of a happy ending because they both kind of found each other again, and they mutually agreed to that they are probably going to see each other in the afterlife. And I cried every single time when I watched it, and I watched this scene a couple of times already.
It's like when you rewatch when Levi is going after Zeke. When he's in his beast mode, beast titan form, you just get goosebumps every time.
Yeah,
like
I watched this scene so often already on YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. So,
also when they are on the wall, and Reiner was just sick of it, and it's the first time that they are actually realizing that exactly. This scene I've watched over and over again already as well because it's such an incredible scene. The tension that is being built with the music in the background as well. Amazing. Guys, as you can tell, I just love it. Getting goosebumps right now. I know this is a lot of anime talk right now, but it's at the tail end of this episode, so I think it's all right this time. One more thing, because someone was actually demanding us to talk a little bit more about anime, at least for once. And I just want to give out a recommendation about a show, and probably, I don't know if you've watched it already, Steve. It's a freaking fantastic show. And I haven't really seen anyone really talk about it because it's right now probably at a time where other shows steal the show. And that is Jujutsu Kaisen, for example, and also Attack on Titans steal the show of this show. And that is Pluto. Have you heard about Pluto?
No.
Freaking
I'm writing
amazing.
it in my anime watch list just now.
Right. It's so good. So good. And you can, I don't know, if anyone has ever watched Monster is also a seinen. This is at times a little bit lengthy or a little bit hard to swallow because it's just also a little bit of an older one, but it's from the same creator and you can really even see it in the style. So I wasn't even aware of that when I started to watch Pluto, that it was from the same maker, but I immediately recognized his style and was like, okay, this is going to be good because he is known for creating freaking fantastic stories. And in that show, there's one particular episode that is all about one robot with a piano player. Such a great episode. Like, honestly, probably one of my most favorite anime episodes of all time. Besides, of course, some other shows, of course, right? But this hits so deep, and is so well written, and also then it's just great. Highly recommend checking out that show. He's very much known for creating very good storylines, that mangaka, and can highly recommend.
I want a good recommendation because I was making my way through Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and it's so, like, some people really love it. I have a actually past client now, and it's his favorite anime, and I feel a bit bad because I have been watching and I'm like, it just doesn't grab me. I like it. Some bits are a bit kiddish, like the way that they communicate, and because they're younger, like children in it, the main characters. Some of it feels a little bit, I don't know. I'm just
Where are you at?
hooked. I don't know. I'm pretty deep. I'm over halfway for sure. So I'm just not hooked by it. And then, Tokyo Ghoul is what I've been making my way through because it's on Netflix and I can watch it downstairs on the TV. But man, I'm not invested. It's like, you don't get, there's so many characters and they have such little character development a lot of the time that I'm just like, who are you again? Why are you here? Like, it's just a bit too, they've rushed it.
This is what you have at times with animes, certain animes, that you just watch it on the side, not really following along because it never really catches your attention too much. I have a couple of ones that I've never really finished, for example, or I started and then I had to come back at a later point, or things where I'm just like having it running on the side background while I'm doing just something else, because it's just a nice to watch, but nothing that really is special or grabs your attention or anything where you need to be fully invested to follow the plot along.
I had that with, you probably haven't heard of it because it's not, it's just on Netflix, I think. It's probably on other platforms, but Kengan Ashura, it's a little bit like Baki. It's a bit like Baki. It's just got really fucking cool fight scenes. You don't get invested in characters really. It's just like completely gnarly, like thumbs through eye holes and like broken bones and burning alive. It's a good one just to have, like you said, on the side there. But I want one that I'm like excited to watch and be like, hey, I can watch one episode and I'm done because I need to digest that episode because it was like full on or whatever. Then so if Pluto's like that.
Yeah, go ahead and watch Pluto because the episodes are also 1 hour long.
Different.
Yeah, exactly. But I like it because I think it's even important there for the flow and the dynamic so that you really can sit down and follow along instead of like 20 minutes and then it's over and then you are a little bit out of touch again. You get very much invested, and especially because the story is also a little bit complex. It's more of a mature story. It's a seinen after all, right? So it is a little bit more on the serious side, and you really need to follow along to also then see sometimes the connections and the dots. And if you're not really careful, then you easily forget about like, why did they do this now?
Is it in any way similar to Death Note? It sounds similar in terms of like, it's a bit more serious.
Both are a seinen. So both
that's what I was thinking,
is serious, right? Yeah. But I mean, only because it's a seinen, I wouldn't really say that it's kind of similar to some extent. I mean, it's based on Astro Boy. Have you heard of Astro Boy?
Yes, I have.
And Astro Boy has been, of course, a comic since like the 50s, I think, that has always been reshot, and it's based on that.
Okay.
That story. And it's a fantastic, honestly. Highly recommended. When I was starting to watch it, I was so pleasantly surprised. And this is what I love. Whenever I start to watch something and I don't have any kind of expectations and I'm then pleasantly surprised by it, I love something like this.
Yeah, I would agree. I have nothing to recommend right now because, like I just said, I'm like making my way through things and I'm just like, so I have to watch Pluto. I would recommend Death Note though. I really enjoyed the storyline there. It got a bit towards the end, as I think probably a few people agree. Great. But
this is the anime that I always recommend to each and everyone who has no association with or kind of connection to anime, and they want to just like test things out because Death Note is not that ridiculous style of anime where there are so many things in anime where if you are used to animes, you don't really notice it anymore. But everyone who's watching it from the outside is just like, what the fuck is this even? This is basically also what One Punch Man is doing. They are exaggerating.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, what's it called again? When it's kind of making fun of something. What's it called again?
Banter, taking the piss, or something like that.
But this is basically what One Punch Man really does well, of like over exaggerating. It's kind of also what JoJo is doing. But yeah, this is something that I wouldn't really recommend to watch then for others, like especially something like JoJo. Way too weird. But Death Note, for example, perfect entry.
Yeah, I agree. Not that I've seen that many. I'm still making my way. And JoJo is on, I'm pretty sure it's on my list. JoJo Bizarre. Yeah, JoJo's Bizarre.
That's great.
But
I can also understand when people hate it.
Yeah, I've heard some people don't like it, but you have to try it yourself, right? It's like anything in life. Like you can't just go off other people's opinions. Yeah, nothing else really, I guess, of note to chat about. We've got a Revive meet soon. Actually, I've had a few, if any clients are currently listening and they're like, hey, what's happening? It's basically just a get together and we're just going to a gym and you're going to do your workout. It's me and Pascal aren't take you through a workout and Mike's going to be there as well. We're just like doing our sessions, really.
Exactly. It's as if you are going to the gym. We all put our headphones on. We don't talk to each other. If the machine is occupied because someone else is on it, then you're giving just hard looks to each other. And yeah, then we leave and had a blast in the gym without ever talking to another.
Did I bring this up already on the podcast, my experience at the gym?
Yes, you did.
I did already say it. Man, it didn't happen again, but something similar happened. And I was just like, it wasn't to the same level, but it was. Sometimes I just get frustrated with people at the gym, I think. Yeah.
I do understand.
Happens.
I do understand. Some people are weirdos. But to be fair, Steve, if we reflect upon ourselves, I would very much assume that there are other people thinking the exact same thing about us as well. Right? Especially the people that we deem as weirdos. They probably look at us and think the exact same thing. So, yeah.
I think most people look at me and they're like, why has he been on that piece of kit so long? They don't ask if they want to use it. I don't notice if they want to use it. But like a lot of people, you find that people just like, they do like 5 sets in like 5 minutes. You're like, how did you do 5 sets in 5 minutes? That'd take me 2 sets in 5 minutes, maybe.
Anyway. I have one specific person in mind when we are talking about this. He's always showing up and he's always doing like very weird things. And he is not a kind person, to be honest. When you're saying it's a typical German thing, I don't know, but everyone is saying hi to each other, especially in the morning time, right? Because there are not many people there. And when you are just friendly, kind, saying hi because he's coming into the room and to the changing room, and he's always walking around like this with such a face on, and then he is supersetting with other kind of machines. But the way that he does it, right? He's going over to one cable stack and he's just like doing like this bicep curls, like this. I'm not even over exaggerating. It's just like this. And then he's heading over to another tower doing tricep pushdowns like this as well, right? And then he's heading over to another machine, often the Smith machine, and then he's doing presses there like this as well, right? And once he's getting a little bit more exhausted, he's of course shouting. And then he's taking a break.
He's someone who I'm just like, I'll be at the other end of the gym. You stay there, please.
Yeah. I don't know if there was a camera, because it's kind of like a hidden camera, a joke, right? And I'm part of it. And the camera would actually catch my impression or expression on my face. I would just stare at him and wonder, what the hell is he doing? Like that look.
Just confused, baffled.
Anyway, guys, we're coming up on time here. We took enough of your time already speaking about anime. If you're still watching and listening, thank you very much. If not, then you're not listening anymore. So it doesn't really matter what I'm saying anyway. To everyone who's still listening, thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for tuning in. If by now you're still here and you are not subscribed, once again, I would be very surprised, but then please go ahead and subscribe. Because, come on, you've listened to us talk about anime for 20 minutes straight, just giving our opinion on something, talking about weird people at the gym, and you're still here and not subscribed? I mean, come on. Go ahead and do this.
I'm just thinking something like, if you don't subscribe, like try and make them feel freaked out if they don't subscribe, something bad is going to happen. Actually, that's all I'll say. Something bad's gonna happen.
Yeah,
if you don't subscribe.
We're getting the voodoo dolls out, kind of poking around in the stomach area.
Everyone who's unsubscribed.
Exactly. If you don't subscribe here today and you've listened to that, and all of a sudden you have massive diarrhea, you know what happened.
There you
go. So, guys, thank you very much.
We have the death note here. Hey.
Yeah.
There you go.
But in a In a pooping sense.
Yeah.
You're not dying, you're just pooping. And each and every name that we are writing down is just like shitting their pants.
This is going to be like a One Punch Man, like Death Note version. It's just a poop book.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you for listening.
Cheers.
Losing weight fast while maintaining muscle mass. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? It isn't though. It's reality and we know how to do it. And we will help you achieve this. The Minicut Movement is an 8-week fat loss program to make you lose a huge chunk of fat while maintaining muscle mass at the same time. We will support you from the beginning to the end so that you see the results you would like to and come out of it much stronger. You'll receive a fully automated spreadsheet that is based on your nutritional needs. You can choose between 6 different male and female training templates. Over 30 videos will guide you through each and every single step of the Minicut so that you're getting the most out of your journey and that you always know what to do. But the best thing is that you can start whenever you want. The Minicut Movement is open 24/7. So if you want to learn more or you're ready to sign up, hit the link in the description below. So let's revive stronger together.